What's your problem? What's your problem? I don't get what your problem is.
Hi, my name's Adam.
And I'm Jason.
Welcome to What's Your Problem, where we discuss current issues in distance learning and education. In this episode, we're going to explore ways to engage the non-traditional student. But what does that even mean? What is a non-traditional student? Kaylin's here to tell us more.
Thanks, Adam. When you ask someone to think of a higher education student, a lot of people would think of what is referred to as a traditional student, between the ages of 18 and 23, working toward a bachelor's degree at an institution with not many other responsibilities to worry about. However, the times are changing, while they have been for a while now. Non-traditional students are those students who, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, are above the age of 24 and possibly work full-time or have family responsibilities or a growing population in higher ed. Here at Schoolcraft, we account non-traditional students for 1/3 of our student population. Since the number of these students will only continue to grow in the foreseeable future, it's beneficial for all of our faculty members to be aware on the best strategies to interact and teach these students. So, Jason, Adam, what do instructors and administrators need to know about putting their focus on the non-traditional student?
According to a report by The Economist, higher education enrollments of non-traditional students rose by 314,000 in the 1990s and by 899,000 in the 2000s. This is because they finally have a place to learn, online. In many cases, non-traditional students are already employed and college enrollment is a path to promotion or higher pay. Furthermore, they're usually working full-time, often caring for others and paying their own way. What does this mean? It means cost is king. Did you know that cost and financial aid is the #1 reason why students don't go to college or discontinue a program? And this statistic bridges all generations across the board. Affordability is the #1 decision factor. Now, obviously, as an instructor, you have little influence on what education will cost your students at your institution. However, you can take note of non-traditional students' unique needs and help keep them on track so they don't waste their time or money. As an online instructor, you're already leading the charge for the non-traditional student in that you're instructing them in a model that blends best with their life barriers. However, according to a recent Inside Higher Ed article, the cost barrier is paramount to all others, and non-traditional students are most apt to judge the cost of an institution on its sticker price. In other words, non-traditional students tend to judge a college based on the total cost without taking into account the many forms of student aid available and the value that comes with a degree. Furthermore, these students are also strongly affected by the recent media trend running stories about whether or not college is worth it. In fact, all the data show that college is worth it, and that on the average, whatever degree you have, you're better off than people without that degree. Therefore, a tactic you can employ for all students, including non-traditional, is to shift the conversation from cost to value. Non-traditional students are usually weighing going back to college or staying in a program with just entering the workforce. And the best way to continue to engage and retain the non-traditional student is to focus on the value that comes with the education you're providing. Once the non-traditional student understands the value, they tend to accept the cost. Additionally, pointing them in the direction of the student aid available for adults coming back to college, like the Pell Grant, is another great way to entice and engage these students.
Thanks, Jason. In addition to searching for value, non-traditional students are looking for a streamlined, personalized educational experience. But what does that look like? For non-traditional students, that experience centers on communication that is tailored towards their unique educational goals and preferences. A recent online survey of over 1,000 non-traditional students conducted by the University Professional and Continuing Education Association in conjunction with Blackboard Incorporated noted that non-traditional students most often fall into 3 categories: career climbers, career changers, and knowledge seekers. So just like with all communication, it's imperative that you know your audience. Take some time to ask your students why they decided to take your class and let that inform your communications with them. If a student is trying to move up in her current career, she'll be looking to you to help her make connections to her specific experience in the field. Students who are changing careers tend to be goal-oriented and focused on the most efficient path to getting that new job. Use that knowledge to clearly lay out steps and short-term goals to keep them motivated. Other students may only be in your class because they're intellectually curious and interested in learning more about a given topic. Feed that curiosity with questions and maybe a few extra credit challenges that force them to dig deeper. And even if you don't always have time to reach out to individual students through feedback or email, simply knowing the needs of these audiences allow you to more thoughtfully craft your weekly announcements or email reminders so they include a little encouragement for all of your students, regardless of which category they fall into. This personalized approach to communication not only improves each non-traditional student's experience, but when the career climbers are sharing experiences, the career changers are gaining understanding, and the knowledge seekers are asking questions and challenging ideas, it can really improve the overall learning environment for everyone.
Thanks, Adam. You know that scene in the incomparable film Rocky where, spoiler alert, Apollo Creed puts Rocky down and turns around to see Rocky get back up while Bill Conti's song Going the Distance slowly builds in the background? These are your non-traditional students, in many cases beaten, bashed, and tired, but they're also the ones who want more than anyone not to give up. Many non-traditional students have higher ed credit from an institution, and life somehow prevented them from finishing their original plan. But look, here they are, back in the ring. Our final tip for instructors looking to engage their non-traditional students is to play into their persistence. One way to do this is to acknowledge that non-traditional students need quick wins to stay on track, remain motivated, and get through the program. Encourage students to check their progress towards their degree in Web Advisor, and take advantage of that critical moment at the end of the semester to invite students back next semester to continue their paths. Second, non-traditional students appreciate social presence from the instructor more than nearly any other kind of student. We will explore social presence in more detail in a future episode this season, but the impact that initiative is having on online student performance is becoming more and more apparent. In the way that Rocky had Mickey in his corner, the more academic and emotional support non-traditional students receive, the more they will succeed. And finally, all students, especially non-traditional students, benefit from a firm grasp on the confusing institutional processes outside the classroom. Sharing any knowledge that you have that helps a student to apply, transfer credit, receive financial aid, and enroll for courses is an essential form of support for non-traditional students. Being a resource, or at least a guide to these potential roadblocks, will tap into the non-traditional students' persistence and increase their engagement in your class and the next.
So, as a quick recap, to keep the non-traditional student engaged, they need to see the cost benefit between the tuition they are paying and the course content they are learning. If the course content value is below what they already know from full-time employment or life lessons, then they will not see the benefits of the course and paying to learn about something they already know. Instructors can create a streamlined personal learning experience that meets their students' learning goals through communicating with their students and understanding who their audience in the course is. And finally, keep in mind the value of social presence. Keep students motivated to succeed and finish their program by reminding them to check their grades and ask for help when needed. Share any and all knowledge you have regarding institutional rules and subject knowledge. Always be there for students, whether it is answering a question, adding in new content, or to engage everyone, or holding online office hours.
What's Your Problem wants to hear from you. If you have an idea you'd like to discuss in a future episode, or if you'd just like to drop us a line, send us an email or follow us on Twitter.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
What's your problem? What's your problem? I don't get what your problem is.
Welcome to Schoolcraft. Welcome to college.